Good evening. It is 7 p.m. I'd like to call to order the regular May meeting of the Stephenville School Board of Trustees. Please rise for pledge allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll take roll of the board. Dan. Jennifer. Jennifer's here via phone this evening. Tony?
Here.
Fran?
Here.
I'm here. Ben? Stephanie? Billy?
I'm here.
Nathan?
Here.
All 8 trustees are present, 1 via phone this evening. At this time, we'll start the meeting with a board comment or comment from the administration. The things that aren't on tonight's agenda. Board, any comment? Yes.
I would just like to congratulate the middle school National History Day team. It's been a little while, but since our last regular meeting, that went on to, just went on to nationals.
First time in Stevensville middle school history.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Another comment from the board. I'd like to certainly appreciate and recognize Teacher Appreciation Week last week, and I know there's not enough that can be done to fully show appreciation for public educators and all the work that's done, especially here at Stevensville. Appreciate the great work that Stephanie did on the board about the event Friday, so appreciate the work being done there. And not related to Teacher Appreciation Week, but wanted to thank Tony for doing a bunch of good work on figuring out how to get the baseball fields ready for spring and summer events, sprinkler systems, worked on fix. He's discovered a lot of really positive things in that can be worked out later as a committee, so things that aren't going to cost a lot of money that are going to be good things for kids. So, administration.
Just happy to see a full house tonight. Got kids in the room, so excited about the meeting.
And then I would like to recognize 2 lovely people sitting back here. Ryan Hamilton will be our assistant principal in the elementary next year, so he has joined us this evening. And then Beth Schreiber will be changing her hat at the end of this school year and be our Title I coordinator and district curriculum director. So they're here kind of as a dipping their toe in the water for a board meeting, so be nice.
Yeah.
Welcome, Ryan.
Right, at this time, we'll open the floor for public comment. The time on, this is time to comment on matters that are not on tonight's agenda. Topics for public comment cannot include anything pertaining to pending legal matters, private personnel issues, or private student issues. The board cannot enter any discussion during general public comment. The board may occasionally ask questions to clarify public comment or correct any accurate statement. Is there any public comment? All right, we'll move on with our approval of claims tonight. You'll do in your packet that we have March and April claims. We have March claims of $23,394.75. April claims $559,642.26. And then we have April student account too of $22,310. So,
Ben,
yes.
sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to let you know that the claim list that was printed for April student accounts was printed in error. That's why I distributed a new list for everyone. It was actually printed for April of 2024 through April of 25. So that's why I printed that, because we usually just do it for 1 month. So I just did, it led to a little bit of confusion amongst some of the trustees. So I just want to make sure that everybody had that so that there was less confusion. And then, but the amount is still the same on there. So that's correct. And then one other thing that I wanted to notate is that as you guys are aware, we do have some new staff members in the district office. And so we did have to make a couple of changes to the claims this month. And so I just needed to point out, I think there were 3 claims that were slightly different than what you have on your report.
Okay.
And so I just wanted to tell you those. There were a couple of errors, and so we didn't catch those until after the board packet went out. And so if you go to page 8, claim 42384 should have been for $1,761.17. They're all less. I might add, they're all less than what they are stated on here. So, and I put the correct amount for you, Ben. So you,
I see it there.
yeah. And then the other one is on page 9, claim 42399. It should have been for $165.10. And the last claim that there was change on was on page 11, and it was 42422 for Super One, and it should have been for $878.74. And it did go up slightly on that one, but overall, the total amount was less. And so I knew that you guys would prefer that I corrected those and let you know what was going on.
Okay.
Mhm. Thank you. I'm sorry for the interruption.
Thank you for the clarification. Questions on tonight's claims now that they've been clarified? No questions on the claims. We'll open for a motion. We have March claims, 42302 through 42318 for $22,294.75. April claims number 42319 through 42426 for $559,614.26. April student accounts corrected in the handout in front of you to April 2025, totaling $22,310.04. Total claims approval tonight, $605,390,000 and undefined. Brand? Tony? All those in favor of approving claims as updated by the clerk and then as presented, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll move on to our consent agenda. You'll note the consent agenda that there is a lot of fantastic names working a lot of our summer programs. There's also getting going on our fall coaches and the assistant coaches. So some really great programs there, hiring some classified personnel as well. And then I do want to draw people's attention to in the packet that the certified personnel that are coming into full-time positions, including Mr. Hamilton and others, there's some nice write-ups and biographical information about each. So I hope every trustee has looked at the great staff that we're hiring and bringing on board. I thought those were some great biographies, some really important information to bring in. So items on tonight's consent agenda have been organized as such due to their similar nature and have been deemed unlikely by the superintendent and board chair to require individual discussion. Any trustee has the right to request that an item be removed from the consent agenda to be debated and acted upon by itself. Does any trustee wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Trustee approval of the consent agenda only pertains to those items that trustees legally have the right to approve under 2-3-202 of Montana Code. Is there any objection to approving the consent agenda as presented? Seeing none, consent agenda approved. All right, move on to our informational items. We have 4 informational items tonight. Starting off with a student presentation on the Tamplin Award.
All right, hi, good evening. My name is Adelaide Meyer. I am currently a sophomore, so in 2023, I was fortunate enough to earn the Tamplin Award, which is an award going out to outstanding 8th graders in our school. And while I've seen this award many times and walked by it as it's a prominent piece of our Stevensville history, I never exactly knew what it was and what it meant to Stevensville. So I did some research on Mr. Tamplin and figured out Mr. Tamplin is the person who this award is named after. He used to be our superintendent in Stevensville before untimely passing. Previously, he worked as a teacher in Lima and St. Regis, and he had education from the University of Ohio and from U of M. This was a big award for me to receive, and I noticed that for years and years, people have received this award, and I was able to look back and say, hey, I know this person from the community. So I thought it would mean something if we had a little bit on Mr. Tamplin to go with the plaque to explain kind of what it means and what it means for us to have a legacy as Stevensville. So I'd like to present this to the middle school.
Thank you. We'll move on to our high school student council report. And I see we have a new face at the end of the table. So I don't know if, Mr. Caney, you want to introduce the new representation as the school year's coming to an end? And
Absolutely. So they voted 2 weeks ago, and they're rolling over a new student council. And one of those positions that was elected was the student council representative for board meetings. So Mr. Tegan Hackett was the one who was voted by his peers to represent the student body for Stevensville High School.
Like Mr. Kane said, I'm Tegan Hackett. I'm the new student council or student body representative. I'm not still entirely sure how everything exactly moves, so.
We like to keep it that way.
If you guys have any like next board meeting that you know about, if you should be that, I would be blessed. So I just put together some of the things with the clubs that I asked about for the month of May and the coming weeks. So NHS put together the teacher appreciation basket for Teacher Appreciation Week, and is having a meeting tomorrow for the seniors in NHS for their senior recognition. Tennis is going to be going to divisionals in Hamilton for like all of this week, so for tennis. Track divisionals is going to be Friday and Saturday night. Softball is having their senior night, but yeah, and track is also having their senior night in conjunction with softball. AP exams went really well for the kids who ended up testing, from what I can tell. That went to nationals, which is really awesome. We went to Orlando and had a great time there. FCCLA was mostly done with all of their things and then just preparing for the new year. FFA, we had Farm Fair, and that was a blast. We got team fairs. Choir and band have their concerts this. Yeah, so that's the information.
awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Curriculum report, Mr. Stone.
Good evening. Curriculum report will be pretty quick. I have a couple different components in there that I discussed with timeline of where we're headed with our implementation. The curriculum materials for Amplify have been showing up all week this week. We have 4 pallets of curriculum that we will get out before the end of the school year here. In the same notion, we'll be taking old curriculum in, and we'll make sure to get on the disposal list and see if anyone wants that old curriculum through the process, through the board here. We will have our first training right after school is out. It'll be December 11th for Amplify for ELP to 8th grade. And we're working with ArcCore to get all of the curriculum here as well. It should be here. They told us probably in the first or second week of June. Their training will be in August for the high school, tentatively right now, August 19th. In the report, discussed a little bit about continuing some of the great work that Mr. Tennis has helped us start with our PLC Plus process. Talk a little bit in the report about what each of the PLCs look like for a structure and framework for next year. How we have some of our Wednesdays dedicated to district goals, some to school-specific goals. And then there's one open for teacher planning each month. The last component I want to talk about was the process of building a draft format for our curriculum guide. There is a draft at the bottom of the report there that kind of goes through some of the main components that we'll have across the board in every subject area from ELP to 12th grade. And so we wanted to come up with a universal format. Mr. Dennis had proposed having a curriculum guide, but also having the calendar on the side of it with the weeks that units are taught. And I feel like this is a great addition, I think, to for a brand new teacher or a new staff member coming into our district to be able to see which weeks, what units are taught, what's the criteria for my students to be able to be successful, how is the information going to be assessed, and then what resources are we going to use to be able to teach that unit. So that's kind of a draft framework that we have. New curriculum director coming aboard, so we'll definitely be working with her as well over the next couple months to continue the work that we've started.
Questions from the board or the public on the curriculum work? It's like they work all year. The team. All right. Thank you. Mr. Dennis, superintendent report.
Yeah, so my report is also brief. Just wanted to give you an idea of upcoming meetings. These would be essentially my final meetings in the district. So you have a list of committee meetings and school committees. The human resource information, Mr. Conan and I have been working on filling the position of technology supervisor. That was vacated by Mr. Scheller. Caleb Knudsen has been filling in that role essentially most of this year and done a really, really strong job. But it's time for us to be looking for a supervisor in that particular role. And so that is up and coming. Policy, we are starting to, I'm starting to close down my policy calendar. So you can see there's a couple things coming, 3310, 3510, and then looking at risk assessments or threat assessment policy work in the next few weeks. On the backside, some resources and ad hoc committee items. As of today, the business office, Christy and I submitted the documentation to OPI for compliance with the STARS Act. We did it even before the deadline, which is the 15th. So that has been submitted. We are continuing to have productive conversations with the Stevensville Teachers Association, working through salary benefits and agreement language. The process has been positive, and we are hoping that we can finish in the next couple of weeks. Once that is done, we can begin some conversations with the para secretaries and the custodian maintenance employee groups. We are still working through some information about an addendum with Harlow's on our contract with adjusted miles and rates. So we're working through that information. And then the final thing, this is my my transition plan. So I will be out of the office as of June 13th. Always available. My phone still works and would always answer the phone to help out in any way possible for Mr. Conan or anybody here for that matter. But gonna use up a little vacation before I start the next adventure. So there you have it.
Thank you, and I will add a date, an item that Dave and I have been talking about here just today. I would invite every trustee to place on their calendar Wednesday, May 21st at 1 p.m. an All Valley School Board Trustee session with Representative Dave Beatty. So last year Corvallis hosted an All Valley Board Chair and Superintendent meeting, and I thought it was super productive, very well received, great information. It was good to get together with the all the schools in Ravalli County and Bitterroot. And so I worked with Corvallis' board chair, Dan Wolski, and he and I have been talking about how can we do something that's not just board chairs, that's everyone. And so Victor has been gracious enough to host in their performing arts auditorium. So 1 p.m. Wednesday, not tomorrow, but a week from tomorrow. And Representative Beatty will be going over the recently concluded session, its impact on public education, and then some next steps that he would advise that we do to continue to support public education in Bitterroot. And then we'll have some time for some superintendent's topics, like we did last year, that are pertinent to every school in the valley. So hope everyone can attend. Should be a good hour and a half there. Questions for the superintendent report? Questions on anything in the report in the packet? Right. Thank you, Mr. Dennis. Thank you. All right, that wraps up our informational items and leads us to our action items, which start with an out-of-state travel request for the FFA. Mr. Dennis?
Well, congratulations. State champions in the house. So a little tiny piece of the approving the out-of-state travel is a presentation. I'd like you to introduce your team and walk us through.
Yeah, doesn't happen. I teach we run crew that was one that has a little bit of specialty for me, right? So these kids, what I wanted to share is that this is actually a really pretty big deal. There'd be a top half in their district. There are currently 10 districts, and then they had to go ahead and compete against 36 or 37 teams. It may be, was it 48? It's a lot of teams. I put, doesn't matter, all that matters is the top, right? I'm pretty quiet about myself, but I did want to share this with you. I want to brag on these kids. I think there's some documents in the board packet about what these kids actually have to academically know. It is not easy. It's high-level plant and soil science. It is understanding and being able to identify all the important insects in the state, all the important weeds, all the important crops, be able to go through a lot of soil information and things like that. The really cool thing about this team, there's one senior and 3 sophomores. So they went ahead and took them out, as we say, right? Get in there and take them out. We are coaching 5. Zane is our alternative, so Zane Deering is our alternative because just in case something happens, we want somebody to be prepared. So kudos to this kid because he's studying like no other. I want to tell you, these guys are studying 4 hours a week after school right now. We spent from 5 to 7 preparing again tonight. They're ready to go and try and get into that top 10 in the nation, which is difficult because we're going to go up against Midwest teams. Those kids live, breathe, and eat this sort of stuff, right? So the team members are Adelaide Meyer, Kira Dejo, Taylor Robot, and this guy. Stephen Hackett. I wanted to show you what it's like at a state convention, what happens when these kids get on the stage. There are 2,000 kids watching these guys. We're up in the stands. We're at the Montana State University. And I just wanted to share the excitement of what this really looks like at this level. So it's just a couple minutes that I'm going to take of your time. Hopefully you saw me panicking. Board members, you know that the 2-step verification works. Right? Because we all know that I may or may may not have my phone with me, so. And I got my job done, so. She works. So, to share this with you.
And other management practices. This year's competition is sponsored by the Montana Grain Growers Association. The top individual will receive a $1,000 scholarship sponsored by Big Sky Land Management. Your high individuals in the agronomy CDE are 10. Erin Connors from Kalispell. 9. Alexis Maya from Belgrade. 8. Kira DeCharlet from Stevensville. Joel Stanley from Missoula. 6. Cassidy Brock from Shields Valley. 5th. AJ Sharkey from Missoula. 4th. Asha Jerky from Shields Valley. 3rd. Amanda Willis from Shields Valley.
This gives her a panic.
2nd. Tegan Hackett from Stevensville. And your first place individual, Katie Harris from the Joliet FFA chapter. Will the following teams please come forward? Joliet, Stevensville, Kalispell, Missoula, and Shields Valley.
So what you probably didn't notice is that there were 3 kids from Shields Valley.
Mhm.
And so it doesn't look promising yet. Right, because we usually can tell by now.
In 5th place, Kalispell FFA. In 4th, Missoula. In 3rd place, Joliet. In 2nd, Shields Valley.
You see him?
And your state winner in the agronomy CDE, Stevensville FFA chapter. Agronomy contestants and sponsors.
Just a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Can't really put it on there, but it's loud.
It is loud, it is really loud. I don't know if you guys read the news article either, but this doesn't happen. The 8th time in the history of Stevensville FFA that we have had state champions. It is not an everyday thing. Do we bump up against it a lot? We sure do. We do. We're pretty successful, but we don't. And the thing that really, I just wanted to show you what, we saw their team problem. The board did anyway for a state problem. From there to there is their team problem, an example of last year's team problem. They will tackle a scenario of a problem in a crop. They will be given an hour to go through all the data and answer 60 questions, and then they will turn around and have a presentation to the grower or the producer on what they think went wrong in that field and how they're going to fix it. They will then have, again, disorders, insects, a general exam, which actually comes from the Agronomy Society of America Certified Crop Advisor exam. And that is an exam that usually college, after you've gotten through college, you take to be a crop advisor. We are studying like mad, and hopefully we get up to where we would like to be. Like top 10 is kind of our goal. So as part of that, we would like permission to go. To go ahead and go. We're asking this early because we are trying to get some plane tickets and fundraising and all that sort of thing that has to happen between now and then, and all the scheduling. So thanks.
questions for the request in front of us?
When are you guys going? October. Thank you for doing the presentation.
This one,
Yeah.
that's what, if you guys, ever get an opportunity to go to a state convention, it's a lot of fun, a lot of energy there. We're, around 2,000 kids from the state that are there every year, and it's fun. It's really fun to have them call your name now.
I didn't have a question, but I did have a comment. I was able to help judge this last year when they had their competition here in Stevensville. And I've never really been involved in the FFA very much, but it was a very impressive group of young people that we have representing us. And so kudos to you guys that y'all are out there representing Stevensville in the way that you are, because I saw it was nice to learn something new about what was going on campus and what's going on in our state. And you have some bright young people that are participating in this. So kudos to y'all. Congratulations that you get to represent Stevensville. I know you'll represent us well.
Nathan?
Just a comment. I was watching Tegan during that presentation, and when he got second, and then when they called the first place, he was shaking his head. And keep having the fight. You'll get it. Have fun, guys. It'll be good.
I'd love to make a
Yes,
motion if we're
please.
at that point.
Yeah.
I would move to approve the out-of-state travel for the national agronomy team to attend the 2025 national competition in Indianapolis, Indiana.
Second. Moved by Stephanie, seconded by Nathan. Thank you, and any questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. You are on your way. Congratulations. All right, equally as exciting, and hopefully there's a video presentation, we have a preschool bus route transportation. Next, Mr. Tennis.
Yeah, so.
Please.
Yes, in your packet, I don't have a presentation. In your packet, you'll find a document that is permission for Majestic, who is the transportation provider for the preschool and the cooperative, to transport students within our school district. This is a requirement for them to be able to transport students within our school district. So this is an annual agreement.
All right, trustees, is there, the floor is open for a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Please.
I motion to approve the transportation agreement with the Rotary Valley Educational Cooperative to transport students within the Stevensville School District boundary.
Fran,
Second.
seconded by Stephanie, and we need to think of this as an elementary only thing since it's preschool, or it doesn't matter.
It probably should be an elementary item. Yeah.
Yeah, so, okay. Any questions or comments? Questions or comments from the public? All right, Dan, how do you vote? Aye. And, Tony, how do you vote? Aye. Fran?
Aye.
I vote aye. Stephanie?
Aye.
Billy?
Aye.
Nathan? Aye. Motion carries elementary district 7-0, and I see a copy here, I will sign it, Christie. All right, moving on to policy 3310. This would be our first reading of this policy, and so Mr. Dennis, members of the policy committee.
Yes, so 3310 has made an appearance at the board level, and we participated in some discussion. There was some concern about behaviors that were physical in nature towards adults. And so the board recommended we take this back to committee and discuss the matter. And we did. We had a really healthy conversation about how this policy goes to work at the administrative level. And really, we feel like the language in the policy does support action if there are situations where a student is aggressive either towards a student, another student, or a staff member. And so a couple of things that lines 32,
The 32 to 37?
yeah, it's 32 to 37. I just caught that typo. 32 to 37 and 22 to 24 on page number 2. Really, if once notification is made, the policy allows for action to be taken by the administration that they feel is appropriate.
Question?
I don't know about a question, but I was going over this with my spouse yesterday. She was wondering, what cleanup duty was a punishment? Really explain that.
Could be that somebody made a mess.
It was self-inflicted.
A lot of times, yes, that can be.
It was just struck me.
Yes, please.
Just one additional thing, I thank you, policy committee, for taking back and processing again. We don't have, staff coming to us very often saying, hey, can we take another look at this policy that comes up? So I'm glad the decision was made to take it back and you guys gave it a closer look and that the language is there. Thank you for doing that.
Well, and just, to add to that, because I am on the policy committee and I'm the one that recommended it, because we really did pick it apart and make it work, because it's important to us to acknowledge that, like Stephanie would say, acknowledge, what that brings to us. So, we did look at it really hard, and we think that, that it covers our teachers, and protects our teachers with wording in those specific areas.
I'm assuming there was no changes.
No, there weren't any changes that we made, but we did discuss in depth, do those statements protect our staff? And we felt like that they did protect our staff and gave the administration some leeway to act in those situations that they occur.
And I'll clarify the changes piece. You'll note on page 2, there's the addition of AI, so this was brought to the board a few months ago. That was the change and sent back. So now, essentially, that's what we would be updating the policy to include that staff can enact disciplinary measures around the prohibited use of AI when it's prohibited in the classroom.
I'm happy to make a motion if that's for you.
Yes, thank you.
I move to advance policy 3310 to a second board reading.
Is there a second?
Second.
Stephanie, seconded by Billy. Further questions or comments from the board? Questions or comments from the public? All those in favor of advancing policy 3310 to a second reading of the board, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you all. This takes us to our out-of-district enrollment. Does everybody have, yes, everybody does have a packet in front of them. And it looks like tonight we have here 1, 2, 3 packets for out-of-district.
Yeah, there's 2. There's elementary, middle, so that's your elementary group.
Okay.
And then you have a high school group as well.
Gotcha. Okay, all right, we'll start first with elementary. So that should be your packet on the top. That has grades 2, 3, 2 for stuff, so.
Are these all students, or are these all for next year, for starting in high school?
Yes, so some of them are current students applying for reapplying, yeah. But yes, this is for next year. And it-
Sure, and we can, they are, we can do them together, we can do something, because I don't know the middle school. Right, so looking at the elementary, questions for the administration? Is there a motion?
I move to accept the administrative recommendation for enrollment.
for the non-resident elementary students as presented.
Brandon, thank you, Tony. Is everybody comfortable doing K through 8, or do you just want to do, does everybody look through K through 8? Or do you just want to do K through 3 first?
I'm good, K
Okay. I hear anybody that's not, so the motion does reflect that. All right, it's been moved and seconded. Comments, questions? Nathan, how do you vote?
Aye.
Billy?
Aye.
Stephanie?
Aye.
I vote aye. Fran?
Aye.
Tony?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
I vote aye, or 7 ayes, thank you. Motion carried unanimously to admit the out-of-district elementary students. Moving on to the high school packet.
Then I will abstain since I do not have that packet.
Okay, all right, thank you. Is there a motion?
I move to accept the administrative recommendation for the enrollment of the non-resident high school students as presented.
Second.
Stephanie and Nathan, questions for the administration? All those in favor of admitting the out-of-district applicants as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0 with 1 abstention. All right. At this time, we have a request for early graduation. And at this time, I will be suggesting that we close the meeting to the public under the authority of Montana Code annotated 2-3-203, where the presiding officer in a public meeting in Montana may close the meeting during the time the discussion relates to a matter of individual privacy, so long as the presiding officer determines that the demands of individual privacy exceed the merits of public disclosure. At this time, unless the family of the early graduation requestee waives their right to privacy,
Carter doesn't care if I talk about publicly at all, so whatever's easiest is fine.
would be, you would just say I waive the right or continue closing.
We can wait, right? That's fine.
Okay, then at this time I will not be closing the meeting to the public. Okay, all right, so public meeting continues in session as we currently have it. Right. So,
Oh, are you not done? I already have these. Thank you.
So in your, the packet that I've given you, I want to go through a couple of things. So I want to start with the trustee decision. So the decision before you this evening is sustaining my recommendation or denying the recommendation and then making a decision about graduation. So at the bottom, if you look at E on at the bottom of the page there, it's A, either sustain the recommendation of the superintendent, deny the recommendation of the superintendent, and then the question would be, well, what would be allowed for graduation as far as participation in the ceremony. So that is the decision. Obviously, the letter in this packet outlines a denial for early graduation. So let me give you a couple of pieces of information about the Alternative Learning Center. As you know, a couple years back, the Alternative Learning Center was a new program that was supported by the trustees to help students pursue their goal of graduation when circumstances had created a situation where graduation may not occur. And so this gave students a path forward who may have been disengaged at the time to re-engage and not lose them from the high school system. The credit requirement for graduation is the same as what is listed in policy 2410. It requires 24 credits of graduation. Some of those credits are course specific. So for example, 4 years of English and whatnot. So the requirements are the same. What is different is the delivery. So your packet contains a letter to Sarah, Lance, and Carter about the request for early graduation. And in that letter, I denied the request for a few reasons. One, I believe the purpose of our Alternative Learning Center is to provide our at-risk students the opportunity to recover and earn credit to graduate on time with their cohort. I didn't feel like our program was established to be an acceleration program. Early graduation requires the completion of some original credit. Now, when you're going through this program, there's going to be some earning of, you can't take a break on gaining your credits while you're trying to recover others, because then you're just in the same boat. So there's always the element of earning some original credit. But I had questions or concerns or less confidence in the depth of the learning experience by not participating in those courses, or at least the full exposure of those courses, and completing those in a short window, a short amount of time. So that's essentially the reason for my denial. I didn't feel confident enough in the administrative procedures for proficiency learning and the criteria that would need to be met for the different courses to be able to earn original credit. So exploring this a little bit in the process, talking to Mr. Caney and Aisha Haxton about the application process, and feel free to jump in, Mr. Caney, if I'm missing something. But the application for the ALC can originate with a counselor, an administrator, with the actual ALC coordinator, an IEP team, or from a teacher or a group of teachers. And then from there is a set of interviews with the and/or counselor. And really, it's a discovery or motivation interview to understand what is the intent behind accessing the Alternative Learning Center, and discussing in that process, will this be more of a recovery sort of situation or original credit? I feel original credit is a topic that needs more exploration and more development from the Stevensville School District. And so that is the gist of the rationale behind the decision to deny early graduation. So questions from the board, and then I'll turn it over to Sarah.
At least one. So the diploma that an individual receives, going through the ALC with the shorter classes and with less whatever? Is it the same as a regular?
It's a
diploma?
Stevensville diploma.
Yes, Frank?
My first question is the letter that you sent to the Armijo family, Dave, and I didn't catch this. Anyway, the dates, there's not a date on it. Do you know when
No.
that letter was sent to them?
It must have been, I don't know the date off the top of my head, but it was middle of April, is that right?
April 11th.
April 11th, okay.
And I guess my other question that I had was at the time, I'm noticing the acceptance into the ALC according to this paperwork was at the end of March. At the time that he was accepted into the ALC, was there a discussion of early graduation at that point?
Well, Carter indicates in his application that there is some desire to do that. I wasn't a part of the interview, so I don't know if Mr. Caney's comfortable.
I don't mind answering that. We did not discuss graduating early, Carter and I, when we talked about graduating. We did not talk about graduating early as far as this year was concerned. We were under the assumption that he would probably finish early sometime next year. And that was what we deemed early graduation.
And to be clear, we do expect to hear from the Armijo family, so there's going to be other questions, and I don't want to cut that short in any way. We'll proceed with that short, but are there questions for the superintendent to share at this time? And we handle opportunity.
I guess I have a question. One is there anything that they're asking that's specifically prohibited in our rules for ALCs or something? Are they totally outside the lines anywhere? Looking at it, I guess I feel like if I had gone through this, if I had enrolled in a course and I saw what this young man saw and figured out a way for me to do what I thought would improve my life or move more quickly or within the rules, graduate early, that's what I would have done. And I think there's a lot of kids in the same spot, so it probably requires some revisiting that. But if he's not outside, he hasn't colored outside the lines clearly, or if the lines are blurry on our account. I'm just curious if anybody feels like he's way out of bounds here, or not anybody, is he way out of bounds?
Well, I will answer the question of policy. And honestly, if this was a violation of policy, we wouldn't even be having this discussion. We wouldn't be here. So policy 2050 authorizes proficiency-based graduation or proficiency-based credits, which is an alternative way of achieving the outcome that is designed through the curriculum and through the course work. So really, it's an alternative delivery system, but policy 2410, which dictates graduation, and policy 2050 would allow this. And so this isn't a matter of saying no based on policy. This is me saying no based on, I want to hit the brakes because I want to explore what proficiency means to a larger degree. And I want to see about what our administrative procedures are in place for determining proficiency. And that lapse or lack of a little bit of confidence there led me to hit the brakes and say no.
I think at this time it might be appropriate to hear from Sarah.
Can I ask one other thing as far as like timing? I guess I'm just kind of curious. I mean, it kind of seems like, and I don't know the dates on everything, it just seems like there was some kind of go-ahead given to Carter and the Army, I guess, that this was an option. So they signed up for it, apparently, that's what this is the registration, I'm assuming, that's what this is.
Yep, that's the application
And then
packet.
they were accepted,
Mhm.
but now we're backing up. I guess I'm just curious.
But I think
timing of that.
through the application, it just says, I also hope to get my diploma, get my high school diploma, expand my business. There's hope, I think.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's kind of the plan in their mind. At some point, they were given the okay to go ahead. I mean, am I understanding that correctly, or?
Yeah, I think internally there was some conversation about the potential of getting to this. And then when it came to the desk of the building administration, it was denied at that level. And then appealed to me and denied at my level as well. And so now it's gone through the process, so it sits in front of the trustees.
So there was never a point then where it's like, okay, you're good to go, run with this thing. And then,
I don't know if I know the whole answer to that question.
I'm just trying to figure out, yeah, just kind of the timing of things to see what was promised and then maybe backed up on it. And I'm not saying that happened, I'm just,
That's a legitimate concern.
so that's what I'm trying to decipher.
Did he complete this request involves completing 2 full original courses in less than 40 days. It's a significant departure from the 90-day standard semester schedule.
He has completed some recovered courses and some original credit while he's been in there.
Sarah, we'd like to offer the floor to you as your student. Is that correct?
And Sarah, for those of you who don't know me, you know pretty much everybody in here, but, so first I want to say, Carter would like to apologize. He is not feeling very good tonight, and I'm going to be honest, it's because he's really stressed out about this. So he is stuck at home close to the bathroom right now because he is not feeling very well. So I did ask him to text me what he was going to say to you guys. So I'll start off with that, just so you can hear his words directly. I've not read this yet, so we'll see what it says. It said, I would like to graduate this year because I want to get an early start on my adult life. I came into the ALC with the belief that I would be able to graduate this year if I got all my credits done. I'm currently done with 23 out of my 24 credits needed. All I have left, and I'm currently working on, is finishing my English 12. I have worked very hard to get those credits done in such a short amount of time. I would like to walk at graduation as a ceremonial event, but it isn't exactly the biggest concern of mine. My biggest concern would be getting my diploma this year. So that's his message to you guys. And he does apologize for not being here. And my husband's so sorry. We host our life group for church at our house on Tuesday nights, and so there's people there, and we can't not do it. People just show up and we don't know who's coming. So sorry, he's not here either. I guess really quick before I kind of go through my timeline, I just want to understand what's a recovery course, right? That definition.
So maybe a student finishes a semester and didn't pass a course.
Okay. So.
So didn't earn credit in the
Gotcha.
course.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. So just kind of a quick, I know that he wants to be here all night, so I tried to prepare and have a little bit of a timeline. For me, that's a big deal of it. But to start off, at home, as long as Carter has been around, he is energetic and doesn't like to sit still. And from probably middle school, I reached out to admin about what we could do to keep him engaged because he gets bored sitting in school. He's pretty smart, he got tested for all the, other stuff. And being a accelerated student, I guess, and was like accepted into the program, but then we didn't have the funding for it and stuff, but that's a long story. So anyway, middle school, I started looking at homeschooling for him, thinking he could come be at home, do what he wants to do, work at his pace. So he wouldn't complain about it, but he really liked the social aspect, so he stayed in school basically. And every year it was kind of a conversation. He kept choosing school because he enjoyed the social part, but struggled with the sitting still and everything else. Anyway, and so then this year especially, I was just like, dude, I can't have this conversation with you anymore. You either are going to say, I'm finishing it out, I'm gonna do this, we're not having this conversation, or look at what your alternatives are. So he took time to speak with counselor, he looked into the Harmony program, he looked into getting his high set, he looked into the ALC and brought it to Lance and I. We went over the different options and the ALC seemed like the best option for him. He likes to be with people, he likes to be a part of the school and the things that they do. He just wanted to learn at his own pace. So we read through everything and it looked like a really great fit. So we met with the counselor, or I should say, Carter filled out his application. And that was probably, I think, on March 10th. And then on March 12th, Lance and I came in with Carter, we met with the school counselor, talked over everything, made it very clear that I shouldn't say made it very clear. We asked a lot of questions saying, if he does this, will he be able to graduate this year? Because if he had just finished out his junior year, he would have had, his main courses would be, he had English 12 and government that he hadn't taken yet, right? So it wasn't a lot. There was, I think, a little bit of elective in there also, but nothing strenuous. He's already done stuff. He's done pre-advanced classes. He's taken extra things like harder classes. So that wasn't a concern necessarily for us, but I wanted to know, is there enough time to be able to accomplish this? Because I don't want you to go into it thinking you're graduating this year and then it's too much work and then you're sad, right? Or, feel defeated and coming back next year and all these plans. So we had a lot of conversation about that.
Can you hear that, Sarah?
Yeah.
Who did you have all that conversation with?
The school counselor.
Okay.
So yeah, it was Lance and I and Carter and the school counselor here. So we finished that conversation and said, you know what, sounds like a good plan. Of course, he explained to us that there's a little bit more in the process after we had that conversation. Carter needed to turn in his application. The principal would kind of interview him and make his decision. And then if it was approved, then it would be sent over to the teacher of the ALC. And then the teacher of the ALC would look and see if there was a spot, because people are in there at their own time. They leave when they're done. It's all this kind of timeline stuff, right? So if he got approved by the principal, then it would get sent to the teacher and she would let us know if there was a spot available for him. So that was all like the 12th, and then the following week, on the 20th, it was confirmed that he was accepted and that it would be a good fit. And I can't speak to what was specifically said between the principal and Carter because I wasn't there. He went and got Carter out of class. They had to walk over to his office, from what Carter tells me. They talked a little bit and then he called the teacher, principal did, and let him know that it was okay. Like he was approved to join the program when she had space available or whatever. So the next day, I think it was, she reached out and told us that he was accepted and everything was good to go. And this was right before spring break. So we're like, oh my gosh, like a lot of change and kind of just trying to figure it out. And she said that she had a spot available because somebody was leaving. And so it was going to work. And his first day in the class would be the first day back from spring break. But he met with her that Friday. She gave him a whole bunch of coursework to work on, kind of mapped out what it would look like to be able to finish it this year. And she has like these papers, and I've seen them, but they have all these squares and they have stickers and all this fun stuff. Anyway, it looked like no problem. It was all mapped out and be able to graduate this year. She reached out to us and said, hey, if you have questions, let us know. So Carter and I sat down, we wrote out all of our questions just to, again, clarify when we got back to school on Monday, because I didn't want to bother her during spring break. Just to really, really, really make sure, because again, for him to stay engaged and him wanting to stay here and get a senior level high school diploma, I was really happy about that. I don't know if he cared as much, but for me, it was like, I thought that would be a good thing to look back later on in life instead of just stopping, right? Or going a different route. So I had a lot of specific questions. I made him write out for his teacher. And it was, what requirements do I have left to finish 11th grade? What requirements are there for my 12th grade? Just to make sure he was clear what he was getting into for credit-wise and class-wise. How
how likely is it for me to graduate this year? What are your recommended resources if I'm struggling at all? Will I have to read any novels? Because I was like, you're finishing your English 11, there's gonna be English 12, you're gonna have to read stuff too, that's time consuming. When did he have to have all the work done so that he could participate in graduation this year? Because obviously grades have to be handled before the actual walk-in ceremony. Could he participate in the senior events like senior breakfast, senior skip day, all those kinds of things? And then if they had extra tassels and caps, because obviously we had to plan this, so we didn't order them at the beginning of the year like most people do. If they happen to have any at the office or, to reach out to friends. And then he made a list of what he needed to graduate, like senior pictures, where or when, what am I gonna wear, blah, blah, blah. Who am I gonna invite to my party? When will it be the party? For grad announcements, what is all the stuff you need to make sure you put on. So he wrote out all these lists because it was very clear to all of us that that was what our intention was. Instead of sending him back to school for a senior year with English and government, and I think there was an elective in there, it made more sense. He wanted to work harder this year and get that done. So we were assured that all that could happen. And we planned our party. I ordered a cap for him. We're borrowing one of our friend's gowns because whoever uses those really, and have it all planned. So this is all happening right after spring break was over. So that first day back was the 24th of March. So this is all happening in about 12 days. Over spring break, he worked hard. He worked on his curriculum that he was provided, went through some stuff, got some credits done because he was finishing up the end of his junior year, right? So there wasn't a whole lot left to do for the junior year. And yeah, so let's see. He, on that Monday, also when he came back, he removed himself from all the classes, made sure he talked to all his teachers, gave them back everything they needed, because once you join the DLC, kind of not part of school, like you couldn't just walk in and out of the school buildings whenever you wanted to. It's a different thing, even though you're still kind of part of the school. Let's see, so we did that. Then on April 3rd, I believe, and again, this is not a conversation I was part of, but what Carter told me. He called me and said, the principal just told the teacher that I can't graduate until the beginning of October. And I said, well, that doesn't make much sense. We've done all this planning, like what's going on? Please ask him to reach out to me. So he said on that Friday, he emailed the principal and said, my mom would like to talk to you, please reach out to her. And then we had the weekend where him and I talked about stuff. And then again on Monday, the 7th, he said he emailed him to remind him to call me. And he did. But prior to talking to him, we actually had a parent-teacher conference already scheduled. So we went and met with his teacher and had the parent-teacher conference. He was excelling, he's passing through these classes, he's earned credit, he rated really well, brought stuff with me if you want to look at it. Did really good, positive environment, he rated himself a little bit, he said, maybe look at my phone a little less, just, it was a good process. She said he still could see the track that he could be able to graduate this year. We had a long conversation with her, and anyway, so then the principal did call me. I'll say that conversation did not go very well. And then he said he would call me back, and then he did. We had another conversation, and that conversation did not go very well. And so when we were at an impasse, I just said, okay, so if we're no longer going to have this conversation, what's the next step? And he obviously, said, reach out to the superintendent because that'd be the right command. And so I did. I sent David an email and asked him if he had time for a conversation because I had something that was kind of time sensitive with graduation coming up and trying to figure things out. And he got back to me. We talked the next day, just kind of briefly, just kind of let him know what had happened. Didn't go into too many details about the conversation that I had with the principal, just that, we weren't agreeing on things. And so he asked me to write him a letter that explained kind of what Carter went through and what this process had been like. So I did. I emailed it to him, and then again, he said, give me a couple days, and then got back to me by the end of that week on the 11th to let me know that he was going to deny the decision to allow Carter to graduate early. So he said, if you want to talk to the school board, let me know. So we got that all scheduled, obviously, which is why I'm here. So I guess that's kind of the timeline, right? That all kind of happened pretty fast, but in that time, Carter's continued to be in the ALC. The only credit he has left is the rest of his English 12 credit, and he's done. So he's still there, he's still doing all the same stuff. And it's really confusing to me, how you can be assured that things can happen. It looks like as long as Carter was doing his work and not just totally goofing off or something, that this was something he could accomplish this year. So that's confusing for one. Some of the conversations that I've had have been a little bit confusing and frustrating. So my main point of all of this is that Carter was excited again about being here and being at school. Like, I will not lie, part of it was a little bit like, my last name's Armijo, I'll get to walk in front of my senior friends and graduate before they do technically. So that was exciting to him, right? Just a fun way, but it was fun to see him excited about doing it and coming here, and he comes to school every day, and you can't be late. There's a lot of rules that, follow this. You cannot be late, you can't be tardy, you can't miss a day. Prior to him joining the ALC, he missed a lot of days, and he was late because he had no motivation to come here, other than seeing friends, I guess. So it's been a huge improvement for him. So as a mother, to hear this all of a sudden now, it's like, okay, no, well, that can't happen. You can't graduate till October. That was really frustrating to me because I thought, well, now I'm gonna, disappoint him. He's thinking this is what's happening. He's working really hard, and now you're gonna change, in my opinion, change your mind about what he can and can't do. I was like, that is not the message I want my kid to have, and I don't want him to leave the school with that message either. I want him to leave excited. He did this. He came. He put in the work. He worked extra hard. He is a hard worker, as you saw. You guys had his application. He does work. Him and his, they're not together anymore, but girlfriend started a company last year. He still runs it. He's managing that. He also works at Super One and has since the day they allowed him to. He also helps other people move. He helps me at some of my companies. Like, he just likes to work. He's a motivated person. Doesn't do well sitting still, listening in class, but he's very intelligent. So him understanding any of the curriculum, I don't think is an issue. I think the only issue why ever his grades might have been a little bit low is because of lack of continuing the day-to-day instruction that you need to grasp parts, but he still would do fine. The only thing I think he's ever struggled in was maybe a little bit with like his calculus, because he would miss some of the instruction. I'm like, yeah, you need to be there for all of it. Like, that's part of why I don't have this conversation with you anymore. So anyway, he is intelligent. He's still doing all the credits. He's almost done. I mean, he's got his English 12, so he's working on that. And if he doesn't finish it in time, that's on him. He has work he has to do, and that has never been the question. He knows he has to do what he's supposed to do. As for why I was asking about the original credit, I heard a couple things. So the original credit or recovery courses, he's never failed a class, so he wasn't making up any new credit. He was literally finishing out his junior year and doing what was going to be required in his senior year, which wasn't a lot. So he was just adding in extra. If it had been more than that, I probably would never even consider him graduating this year, because that's not how it works, right? I mean, it's too much for him, for anybody. So one of the things I also want to bring up, and I know that you all met me and know my passion for kids in the school. I don't want this to happen to any other kid either. I think it's very disheartening. And while I had my conversation with the principal, he did, we asked about, like, I'm like, is this a procedural issue? Is there some issue? Because we were under the belief this is what was happening as long as Carter did his work. And he agreed that there might have been some procedural issues. And I will 100% say that is not my kid's fault. This is what he believed. These were the conversations we had, and we took the time to have them ask specific questions. So again, I wasn't part of the conversation that he had with Carter, obviously, but I was with the counselor and I was with the teacher, and I know exactly what happened there because we were there. So regardless of all of that, I want to make sure this doesn't also happen to another kid. So procedures need to get figured out. please help work on that so that this doesn't happen to another kid. Also, going back to, as Tony mentioned a little bit about the blurry lines or outside lines, this is, I agree with Dave, it's 100% inside the lines of what it's for. I don't agree with the fact that this ALC was created just for, I think it said, just for kids that are disengaged from learning. I think it was an opportunity for our students to be able to learn in an environment that's the best for them. And I look at that two different ways. Carter was disengaged in the fact of sitting in his words being lectured to, because that's not his style of learning, but yeah, I don't know much else, I guess. In a nutshell, it was just more, he only had a little bit extra to do, so if he put the extra work in, why not do it now so that next year he can go on and do the things that he, outside of here, that he wants to do. I would worry as a mom that he would not come, or he would have done his high set or done something different, and I just felt like this was really the best situation for him.
You mentioned that he wrote his expectations down for graduation. Do you know who all that got? Is that something he spoke to you, or did he share that with teacher or staff? Is that his own notes, his own planning notes?
He took him to the teacher, because I told him, we talked over what questions I had and what questions he had to make sure he would be able to accomplish that it's even an option, because I didn't know going into it, and like, we still have the rest of this year's work, plus you've got some for next year. Is it even realistic, being that, it's March or whatever, that you can get this done before graduation? Because I didn't at all want him to go into it thinking, I'm going to graduate this year, and the work be way too much to be able to do that. So I wanted to make sure it was realistic. So no, he took those papers with him into the class. The teacher, he has his notes on there, like he wrote down his version of the answers.
So just a quick follow-up to that, because I appreciate the timeline. So, that long list of very good questions were asked on March 31st, that's the day after spring break.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the school, Mr. Keeney got back 3 days later. So everything happened in 3 days. That happened on Thursday, right? If I got the timeline right.
Yes, and so.
So the school took 3 days to react relatively quickly to get back to everybody on all those questions.
Well, those questions weren't posed to the principal, but it's my understanding that his teacher was having his name added onto like the graduation pamphlet or whatever. And that's when the principal reached out and said, wait, you can't do that this year.
Because no teacher can determine graduation over the principal. Brent?
Okay, I have a few questions. I'm struggling, and I'm just part of my struggle is the timeline here. And I don't know how things happen with other kids in the ALC. I have no doubt that he's working, that Carter's working really hard. So part of my struggle is we're looking at March 31st, and that's a really short timeline to get all the work done. And so I appreciate the effort that you put in as a mom to say, okay, let's map this out, because that's a concern to me. And if that's what we're doing with the ALC, we need to evaluate that away from this either, because that's a really short timeline. One of the questions, I have several questions for the administration. One question I have is, how many students do we have that have early graduated from the ALC since the ALC's inception?
I can't answer that one directly.
Can you give me an approximate number of how many have graduated early?
I can tell you that there are probably 3 that will from this year's cohort. I can't tell you about last year, but I can look it up.
This year?
There were I think there were a couple last year as well.
How long have they been in the
they would have been at least a full year.
Full year, yeah.
Because it's 11 and 12. Right.
So, Mr. King, do you know how many of our students in the ALC are currently seniors in the ALC that will be graduating through the ALC this year?
Yes, I do. There will be 10.
Okay.
Around 10.
So can you give me just a minute? Okay. Part of the reason I'm asking, and as a full disclosure as a board member, I have a senior this year, and I'm helping with senior breakfast and stuff like that. And I've been asked, I asked a number, how many students are we preparing for? And I was told 85 students that we should be preparing for participating with graduation. And so I know that we have, I think the number that Mr. Tennis sent me was 66, or this 1 hour report from the superintendent is 66 for seniors. Or close to that, yes, it's 66. And then if we have 10 from the ALC.
That's about, yeah.
Okay, so my point, regardless, my point to all that is that we do have students that are graduating early through the ALC.
You do.
So my next question is, what is the exception in Carter's situation? What makes Carter's situation different than the other students that are graduating early from the ALC this year?
The difference in my mind is the time that you started and having to complete an entire year course versus, finishing up the junior year classes in that short time was definitely feasible, all right? But the reason I pushed back was the amount of time that he would be completing a full year of a 12th grade English course.
Okay.
Whereas some of the students who had been in there had the whole entire year to be working on multiple courses to be able to reach that goal. That was my differentiation.
And that's my struggle too, is that time frame, that short time frame. I will apologize to you, Sarah, that in my former question I asked about his, Carter's intentions, and I did miss it, and I went back as we were talking, and it is in his application that I also hope to graduate to get my diploma this year. So that indicates to me that that was always the intention from the time he got accepted into the ALC. And I don't think a student, I think that we need to reevaluate what the processes are potentially at the ALC. I don't think a student should be penalized if they went into it thinking that's what they were gonna do. And if he has done the work to get him to that point, that's the part I struggle. At the same time, I'm gonna go back, I struggle with that short time period as well, Mr. King. And so I have this balancing act going on for myself right now.
So some of that, going into that is just that, I'm not sure about, I don't really ask details about the other kids that are graduating early, but I'm assuming because they're graduating early this year, that means they weren't already a senior this year, because then they wouldn't be graduating early, so they must be a grade younger than being a senior. It also is my understanding at the ALC, at least this is what was told to Carter, is that they only take one class at a time. So when you're in the ALC, you may have 5 classes you have to take, but you only do one, and then once you're done with that and you earn that credit, then you move on to the next one. You don't get to just do a bunch at the same time. So if someone was, say, also a junior, and they had been at the ALC all year this year as a junior, they were still doing 2 years worth of work within 1 year, would be my guess on average. So Carter just had to finish up half of a semester in some of his junior classes, which he already had early release, because he already had some extra credits and things like that. So he wasn't enrolled full-time as it was. So he just added on that extra English, which is a full credit for 12th grade, a half a credit for the government class that you take in 12th grade. And then, like I said, I think he had an elective as well. That was like half credit or something. I don't remember exactly on that part. Those those are usually a little bit easier to deal with. So, again, that was one of the questions I had had too, because I'm not gonna lie, when I look at English, and no offense to any English majors in here, but in my opinion, Carter wasn't going to learn a whole heck of a lot with 12th grade English, much different than 11th grade English. He doesn't really struggle in it. He's kind of bored in that class, but he understands it. And so I felt comfortable with him as a mom taking that course in a shorter amount of time than for a full year. But also, in my conversation with the principal, or I shouldn't say that, that's not correct. He did tell me that he could graduate earlier in the year next year, while him and I were on the phone. And so I thought, okay, well, so if he's starting this program in March, and he has until May, a couple months to finish this, and he's telling me he can maybe graduate in October, that would be the same amount of time for that class, roughly, within a matter of weeks or so. So I'm like, that's the same thing. He just doesn't want to have to come back and be here again next year. He wants to graduate this year and move on so that he's not just here for a little bit. Some of his resolution for that was like, well, he could just finish it and then just walk with the classes next year and graduate. I'm like, that is not the point. He wants to move forward with his life, not be held back by just a little bit. He'd rather put the work in now and move forward. And he said, well, you could maybe graduate early, at the beginning of the year next year. And I said, that's the same thing as him just putting in extra work now. It's still a shortened amount of time to complete the same amount of work. To me, that's no different. This is just his preference. And it's what we were in the understanding he could do. So hopefully that clarifies it a little bit.
So, and with a couple questions, a couple comments, maybe whatever. First off, it sounds to me like there were a lot of conversations between a lot of different people over a lot of different things apparently discussed, talked about, maybe not agreed upon, maybe not everybody here is the same thing. Did you ever get anything in writing from the principal, who's the one that determined at that level who meets the requirements to graduate and who does not? Did you have any hard copy that this is what is going to happen at this point in time?
Do I get a statement from the principal stating that Carter could graduate this
A
year?
hard copy.
I know. I actually never had a conversation with him at all until I asked Carter to have him call me because he was telling Carter, he told Carter's teacher he couldn't graduate now this year because she was trying to add his name onto his teacher, was trying to put his name onto the graduation for this year. And then he said, so I never spoke with him at all.
I'm sorry, quit it.
Yeah, I just was saying, I never spoke with him at all. However, after my family talked with the counselor, Carter talked to the principal, and then my family talked with the teacher. In between there, it's my understanding that the principal's interview process is he reads Carter's application that clearly states he wanted to graduate this year. That was his intention. He wanted to do that, he hoped to do that. And the principal approved it. And then sent it to the teacher and said, here, this kid's accepted, I approve it, you have proof. So that's the only conversation I wasn't a part of.
So I'm just going off of what I'm hearing and what I'm reading. There seems to be there's a lot of assumptions. We're assuming this is gonna happen, we're assuming this is gonna happen when, but we never ever got from the principal, if I'm hearing this correctly, who is the initial determinant of whether a student in high school is going to graduate or not. Never got a specific statement from Mr. Keeney to anybody that you can and we will.
No, he did not.
No, he never
Not
did.
at all.
So we appear to be working off of a lot of assumptions. Is that correct? And I'm making that assumption, I'm sorry.
No, well, I can tell you that my family was assured with the counselor that this was a possibility.
Yeah,
And also, after that, and once Carter was in the classroom with the teacher, she took his work. When we said we want to make sure he can do this and it's reasonable, she created his document, she created his curriculum, she wrote down the timeline showing he could create this and do this all this year. So
Was that ever taken to the principal for approval?
he had already approved him to be in the thing. I don't know what their relationship is between the teacher and him. I don't know how they do that. She just gave him his curriculum. So when he came home for spring break, he had it all mapped out that he could get it done this year, as long as he put it into effort and was serious and did the work. It was,
That statement didn't come from us.
no, like I said, I didn't talk with him until after the fact.
Did Carter ever, and I'm focused again on these 3 days, because I see the date here, 3/31, then on your timeline, 4/3, so there's a 3-day window. Where Mr. Haney made his decision, or got caught up to everything and let everyone know what was going on. And that list of 20-some questions, which is a great list of questions, did Carter go talk to Mr. Haney about those? And I'll just preface this, that I guess I'm just thinking about it through maybe my own child or just high school graduation in general. Like, no teacher ever gets to determine who graduates. Like, every teacher does their own part, but no single teacher ever gets to determine. It's always the principal that determines who graduates, because they take that body of work and go over. So I'm trying to walk my head through that inside that 3-day window.
So it's not really a 3-day window, because Carter was accepted. We got the acceptance letter on the 20th of March.
Sure.
So that means that we got what we needed from the counselor. The principal interviewed Carter, read his application, and approved what he wanted to
But
do.
the questions, the 20 questions that you listed were asked on his first day.
Oh, yeah, because it's spring break.
Sure.
It's just that break right
So
there.
those questions were all asked, and what it, like Dan said, we can all assume, and we could all be wrong on what happened then, but somewhere then there was some conversation. You can elaborate, but then there was a 3-day turnaround real quick where Mr. King said, just a second, we gotta be careful on this. We can't go down this road.
But that's not my understanding. So when Carter was accepted, reading through the documents of how this works is that you figure out what works, the principal interviews them, approves it based on the application, the conversation that they have with the student, and then it goes on to the teacher. And because the ALC is different and the kids work at their own pace, they have this many credits. The teacher helps them map out what that looks like for them and how to accomplish those. And that's what they help them do at their pace. So that was provided to us on the 21st before spring break. So during spring break, Carter was also working through all that and everything. And it's, again, not that I was part of this conversation, but what I was explained is that on Thursday, the 3rd, that the teacher was trying to put Carter's name onto like the senior breakfast list and onto the brochure and whatever that is that gets handed out. And so that was in the office, I'm guessing. And then that is what had the principal talk to his teacher and say, whoa, wait, what do you. And so, and again, I was a part of that, so I don't know. That's just what Carter shared. He said, the teacher told me that the principal told her today while she was doing this, that she means I can't have my name on there or something like that. I don't remember exactly. And I said, okay, please don't talk about this with anyone. Have the principal contact me so we can have a conversation.
So what's our norm for how we implement proficiency-based learning and assign credits for proficiency-based learning? At the ALC, or are we using it
So,
in the high school, outside the ALC?
so for the high school, how they determine whether they get the credit or not is there's a packet of work that is put together, and then the department heads from that. For example, social studies would sign off and say, this specific packet of work meets the standards of what will be deemed a credit. So there would be one for that, there would be one for English, there would be one for science, and throughout all the different courses that they could take. The only area that we don't have something like that is for math, and math is a MTDA course, right? So we make them go through the Montana Digital Academy for their course on that one. Does that help you?
A little bit. I mean, what's the typical amount of time that a student has to navigate these packets or go through the packets? in order to,
So typically for a half a credit, you have around 3 weeks, which is typically what you would, a student would be able to get through a half a credit, all right? To put it in perspective, if you think of a semester at the high school, that's 18 weeks, right? That's two 9-week quarters, and a typical kid would navigate 7 classes, right? So really, if you do that math, it's right around, if a kid were to just go to a single class every day, all week, a kid could get through a class, a semester's worth of class, anywhere from 2.5 to 3 weeks, if they were just, going that route, all right, when you do it that route.
Is that how the
So for-
ALC does it?
The AOC does it just like that, yeah. So you do have the opportunity where if a kid were to, what she just described right there, as far as the kid taking it home over spring break, right, doing above and beyond, can accelerate that pace. Okay, so a kid could get through more faster, and that's what if you would see a kid who started early in the school year, right at the beginning, and was able to maintain and accelerate that pace, they would be able to gain more credits. That's why an ALC is an effective way to recover credits. If that makes sense.
how common is it that we graduate? I mean, I don't mean to get like
It's okay.
specifics on numbers, but like, it's just that shortened timeline that we're talking about. It's just the end of March to end of May.
This is definitely an outlier kind of situation right there.
Have other 11th graders started in August, September, is that more common?
That's typical,
And
yes.
then they graduate early, but they've been in the program for.
They graduate early, or they graduate in November or October of the next year. So it still feels early to them. Like you have some kids who graduated in the fall, but will be walking with their cohort their senior year this year.
So looking at the packet and the application, in that first paragraph, it talks about being able to catch up and being able to recover your credits or do your own pace so that you can graduate on time. And so I'm not seeing anything in here that talks about graduation, early graduation. But it does sound like we have a norm around that practice. But then of course, on the same packet of documentation, we've got Carter's notes expressing fairly clearly that that's his intention. So I guess, I think that it's pretty clear that the disconnect is just that process between connecting you with the counselor and the teacher. But do you have any more insight into like what that could look like, or what happened here, what would be preventative?
I think process, right? I believe, like I'm looking at the timeline, right? Pulling up the emails on when the emails were sent. The request for Carter to graduate was the first, right? And so once that request was made, that was the first time I knew that there was a request for an early graduation. So from there, it was pretty quick turnaround to say, I no, right? So we made that decision pretty quickly to say no. The problem in this one that I see is all of the work that took place and maybe conversations that took place from when you started over there prior to April 1st, to where you can't argue with beliefs ever, right? You don't argue with what a kid believed or what a kid felt was possible or what was said. So if the kid believed he could do it, is it possible that he worked really hard over spring break and recovered? Yes, absolutely. So I do think we need to clean up and put some buffers in place so that it's very strict and very laid out as far as when those credits will take place and how those things will happen, so we don't have this situation again.
It seems to be a little bit more than belief too, if the teacher laid out a specific plan, which you have that, I'm assuming, a specific plan for him to graduate this year.
Yep, and also one of the things, I guess, that hasn't really been mentioned is that there is, on top of all of this stuff and the rules that they have about not being tardy and all of these other things and not missing classes where they can get kicked out, they also have to maintain, they have to be able to pass stuff by a certain percentage or they don't get the credit. So they also have to get a really good grade, and he's killing it on all of those things. So it's not like he's just even eking past just to get over that. He's doing really well with all his classes. So timeline wise, just hearing what you were explaining about how a semester is usually 18 weeks, but it could probably one class get broken down to 2.5 to 3 weeks. Well, Carter, starting this in the end of March or whatever, that's only what, like 8 weeks left. So he only had 8 weeks of his course left. So he could probably get that done in a matter of a couple days if you're balancing out the 18 weeks versus 2.5 weeks. So some of his classes that he had left, he got done super fast because he was almost done with them anyway, right? If you're looking at that timeline, if you just focus just on that class. So then it really only became about being able to do the English and the government and just wrapping up. He had to do some more math too, which he did online. So it wasn't you can't just do whatever. It's timeline at your own pace, but also you have to maintain a certain grade. And when we checked in for the parent-teacher conferences after all this, and that was right when we found out about the news, but we already had it scheduled, she said he was doing a fantastic job and was still on track to be able to graduate this year. So again, she's not here to, say what she said and what we believed or whatever, but.
So, there's lots of things that's in here that really, I feel like I'm pretty well qualified to talk about this. I have 5 kids that graduated from school. 2 of them graduated early. The youngest being 20, and she'll have 5 years of college under her here in about 14 months. This came up when we did the ALC, and I thought there was some lack of clarity. I don't think that Carter has any problem getting done the things he needs to do. I don't think it'll hold him back. I think that the lack of clarity does a disservice to the administration, especially to the student. Lots of times in life, I've gone through all the motions to get something done, follow all the rules to get to the end of the line and be denied, and I don't really want to be a part of that. I guess I'd like to make a motion that we approve Carter to graduate. And I don't know if that means, I don't know how important it is for Carter to walk with the graduating class. I don't know what the procedures are there, and I guess maybe that should be open to question, but I certainly don't think that the schools can hold them back under any circumstances. I don't know what, I think there's a breakdown between teacher and admin communications maybe. These are things I'm assuming because you just know what it told me to know. But yeah, I think Carter should get to graduate. If he's done the work, he gets it done, completes it, I think the kid should get to graduate. I don't think there's anything to be served at this point, other than us to revisit our own rules. And so, I don't know if it's appropriate then, but I make a motion to graduate with, when he completes his classes.
Yes, it's appropriate. I think to stay in line with what's on the agenda tonight, the motion would actually need to overturn where it is just saying we're over.
I would like to make the motion to overturn the recommendation.
And then to your point, there needs to be, there needs to be some input on what that would look like then, but yes, motion on the floor. Is there?
Want to add anything about?
Pardon?
Would you include anything about commencement in your motion?
Based on that front page.
Or for graduates.
So, I guess I would would like to make a motion to deny the recommendation and allow the student walk 25 ceremony. Welcome to amendments on that, but that would be my motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there comments or amendments?
I guess just to add my 2 cents, I'm positive that ALC was never meant to be a shortcut to graduation. That being said, there's a lot of communication, and Carter was clearly set up to graduate this year. I mean, if he has a schedule presented by the teacher, then I mean, you can't turn him back for that. So obviously our ALC needs to be readdressed and make some little bit clearer boundaries, and like Mr. King said, just a little bit better communication, a little bit better processes to make sure this doesn't happen, because I don't like it, but I also don't think it's right for them to promise Carter, and I shouldn't say them, or whoever did, I mean, to promise Carter and then back out. I don't think that's right either. So, yeah, I think we should allow him to graduate as planned and then fix our issue so this doesn't happen.
Dan?
This was never what the ALC was originally intended. We were told clearly that it would not be processed to allow students to abstract and take advantage of, and that's what I see happening here. The second thing, and I'll come back to what I said a moment ago, there doesn't appear to be any clear-cut approval for this to have happened from the person that's responsible for making that decision, and that's the high school principal. No staff member, no teacher, ALC included, had the authority from this board or anybody else to say, you can do this, you can do that, and get that. So I'm really uncomfortable with what's going on here. I appreciate the fact that Carter has done things that he needs to do. I probably will grudgingly vote in favor of this, but I don't ever want to see this happen again. Thank you.
Yeah, no, as a parent, if I weren't part of this as a student, I wouldn't know that I would need the principal's approval to start moving. I would have just taken it as a green light, getting it from the teacher. So I'm excited to see what our process is gonna look like moving forward. And, yeah, I understand the hesitation here and also wish Carter.
I'll jump on board with what Dan said. I'm 100%, this is not what it was intended for. I spoke about this when we passed it. I think we had different administration in, so it's not really fair to you to go after you guys on this. It's not something, I want to look through it in here. It's absolutely not what this is intended for. I'm 100% on board with them, but I'm not gonna take out my inability to get something addressed on students or members of our community.
That, he's covered, that's exactly what I was gonna say, we have new administration. So he's already said what I was gonna say, I don't think he'll repeat it.
All right. Other comment? Motion, the motion on the floor reads to overturn the recommendation of the administration and to proceed with graduation, including a commencement of May 23rd.
I think I'm going to,
Yes, please.
is there a way to include as long as he's met the requirements, since those requirements have not been met to this point, as long as he's met those graduation requirements?
I think that was part of the class.
I'm not at all opposed to including that. I agree with Billy that I think it goes without saying.
Okay.
But if saying it is important, we would say it.
I'm fine with it.
I'm fine either way, I just wanted to.
I think every senior is waiting for Mr. Finley to let them know everything's set and good. Not every, there's probably some that are pretty confident. There's probably some that are, won't know until finals week, that everything's square, right?
Yeah, some of them would like a vote right now too.
Okay. All right. With nothing further, all those in favor of overturning the recommendation of our school administration, setting graduation for the student for May 31st, pending the successful passage of all coursework, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, sign aye. I'm sorry, okay. Let me get that again. So Jennifer was here and she was a little bit delayed, so all opposed, please say aye. Aye. Okay, and I'm an aye as well on opposed. So the motion carries. It is 6 in favor and 2 opposed. And Sarah, my opposed, not that it matters, but certainly reading the tea leaves, some and my opposed is very much in the spirit of the district that we've got a lot of work to do and you have brought some things forward that I feel badly that they have to involve or wrap up a student, cause them angst and stress, as you pointed out, cause your family angst and stress. You will be able to.
I'd be happy to help with it. There's other things as well, that just conflicting stuff that could make it really confusing for people. And obviously I want it to be a success. It's important, and it's important to me too. Like I said, that other families don't go through this, but also that's not fun for you guys either. And the purpose of bringing this here was to be a supportive thing in the community. And so I would be happy to help. That's part of why I'm here, is just to make sure that this can move forward and be more positive and have better outcomes than it has the last few years for some people. So, yeah, it's not a negative. I just don't want Carter to take the fall because the procedures aren't in place. So
Hopefully tonight's outcome brings him solace, peace of mind.
I think he'll feel very appreciated. Yeah, for sure. And then it's still, like I said, it's still on him. He still has to finish his English.
Sure.
That's all he has left, but he has to finish it, and he has to finish it in an appropriate time frame, but also has to get the grades. He has to do it well. So that part will be up to him. And then I guess he doesn't get that for some reason. I don't really know what that looks like. He finished it in summer school or something. Or, I don't really know what that looks like, but I guess we don't talk about that tonight. Because, you know, it's up to him for that one. Thank you very much for your time tonight, everybody.
Thank you. All right, we'll move forward with the certification of election and oath of office. We held vote of acclamation at the last meeting, since we had nobody run against our three incumbents. Our three incumbents all filed to run again. There is some paperwork, but some of this will look the same. There's some important updated paperwork that Christie has for the three incumbent trustees to sign and then take that oath of office. So Christie.
Yeah, we got a little bit ahead of the, ahead of the, of what we shouldn't have done before.
You can pass them to Ben.
Motion.
I move that we take a 7-minute recess during and after this process.
Starting right now?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor of recessing, just after 9 PM, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say sign. We are stand in recess.
Doing okay?
Thank you very much, Tony.
Action items, we have, 4 remaining action items on tonight's agenda. The next one being the, consideration of action for what we will do with our board self-evaluation results. So, the next steps we will take with this information that is in front of us, the floor is open. Dan?
I'd like to make a motion that the board set a date for a work session, to discuss, evaluate, assess, and self-evaluation that was conducted.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Moved by Dan, second by Tony. Further discussion on setting a work session. It might be a good time to talk about this, that further discussion.
Want to go in the morning or afternoon?
That's a good question. Morning, kind of looks.
Morning works for me.
Morning.
Let me speak.
Yeah. Set a time and work through it, stay focused on it.
I do not have a problem.
Okay.
27th.
That sounds like Memorial Day, but it's probably not, right?
Very day after.
The day after.
Gotta get back to work then.
Okay.
I will not be available until June. I have a son graduating and another group wedding reception.
June the 3rd.
We did not catch that, I'm sorry. Jennifer would like evening, what she said, that she would. And we might not find a time where everyone's available. So I do think in May would be good based on, especially based on Dave's schedule. We also have a desire to have a Dave report out to us as kind of a final piece too at some point, and maybe we can pull that in kind of some of his thoughts and some things that we talked about earlier in the year. So, set ourselves up for the best success possible, and Dave might have some really good advice, knowing that he can give it freely and unencumbered. Are we So the 27th has been proposed. Stephanie has said she cannot commit to anything without her calendar in front of you, which is completely fair. 27th in the morning sure looks good on my end. Other thoughts? Fran is busy, but we might not all make it.
I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
That's fine with me.
Billy, is that there? Dan?
Yeah,
Billy likes that. Okay.
I don't know if I like it.
We'll be all fresh after a 3-day week.
Oh, yeah. We're all so fresh after vacation.
What was that, John?
I don't think I've seen the meeting during the day on the 27th.
Okay.
But I don't have my work calendar, with me, so.
Okay, so we're tentative, certainly already based on Stephanie as well, so we kind of make this a tentative thing we'll take a look at. Yeah, okay, Stephanie, sorry, there's a lot of head nodding, Jennifer, which you can't see head nodding people. There's a lot of head nodding going on. So, okay, so that's part of the discussion then.
What time is it? 8:30.
Nathan proposed the morning.
8:30.
8:30?
Can we, since I was not prepared to schedule something at this meeting, can we, make a point, since this is our board evaluation, that all 8 of us attend, that we find a time that all 8 of us can be there? Can we work through it through a, email schedule?
Yes, we can try, so we're taking this date off the table.
I mean, we can tentatively do it, I would say.
Well, we can't make a decision without two persons' calendars in front of us, so I think we're taking all dates off the table. to be
Okay.
honest with you.
All right, so the motion is exactly what we need. We do this. Okay, all right. Been moved and seconded. Further discussion? All right. Public comment or question? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Motion carries. You shall have a work session. To be determined. All right. Okay, yes, that's all. Our next item is the consideration of contract with Aware for mental health services within the school district. Superintendent Dennis?
Yeah, so this is a contract we've been working with Aware after we had made the decision to move away from the mental health services in the co-op. Began conversations with Aware to provide home support services, which are similar in model to CSCT, but there is definitely some differences in terms of connection with family. This is a contract that is a no-cost contract. The district would provide internet, laptop, and space for the provider to conduct mental health services. I do want to point out on page 4, there is a, at the section 9, termination of services, the last word of that section, or letters of that section, say CSCT, should say HSS, Home Support Services. But this is a free service with Aware. They will bill for services directly to families and conduct their business that way, and they will support our staff in the schools by serving our kids.
Fran?
So the family will be billed for the services.
And they are already now. Like most of the time, there's a Medicaid bill, but there are some private insurance or private pay sorts of situations. But this Aware is set up to be able to do that, whereas maybe we weren't necessarily set up to do that with the co-op.
Are there any trailing DPHHS payments and things that coming up with your last day in the office, or just transition stuff, so we get that all worked out and we don't get sideswiped with that?
I would have to research that a little bit to be certain on an answer.
Okay.
which I will.
Yeah, because I don't know if we're a month in arrears, a month forward on that, I don't. Yeah.
I'm guessing that there's some that are trailing just because they have to bill it, but we do it every single month. But I'm guessing there might be some trailing things.
At some point, we got it, we'll be off that answer. We don't
Yeah.
suffer with-
Yeah, I'm guessing.
I want to quickly thank the administration for the work that's gone into this to figure this out. Other comments or questions? Stephanie?
Are there any gaps in services with the transition? Is there anything that will be missing or have to?
There are some things in the air. I'll talk about the ideal. The ideal is that the employees that we have working with our students would transition into a new company Aware, but there are some hurdles to that. One, the employee has to want to work for them, and two, the company has to want them to work for them. And so they're connected, and we've done some conversations about trying to connect folks to Aware and show them who to talk to and all of those sorts of things. So we're not to the finish line yet, but we are working towards that sort of thing.
Questions, comments? There a motion?
I move to approve the contract between Aware Inc. and Stevenson School District as presented.
Second.
Nathan and Stephanie, thank you, and we do have that one change that's in the contract, so is presented with that. Questions from the public? All those in favor of approving the contract with Aware Incorporated, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. I see this is a signed contract, or you get it to a clean copy?
I'll do a clean copy,
Okay,
yes.
so we're fine. Yeah, okay. Okay. All right, moving on, we have multi-district agreements between Lone Rocks, Florence, Carlton, Hamilton, Corvallis, Darby, and Victor School Districts, so every district in the valley. This is related to our partnership, our agreement with Harmony, and Superintendent Tennis can explain more.
Yeah, so there has been some robust discussion with the OPI about the A and B, and counting A and B for out-of-district students who are served remotely. And so at the advice of MTSBA and Calava Law, the workaround between the districts is to have multi-district agreements in place to be able to share programs and things like that. So that would be the piece of the puzzle that makes all of that work. There's a lot of contracts in here, and with every district, one is a prime and one is a secondary, and then vice versa, which is why there looks like there's two of everything. But all of the districts in Ravalli County are exploring these options at their meetings this week to work around this. So this will allow us to, we don't have to share funds, but we could if that were to ever present itself at some point. But really what we're doing is sharing services amongst the districts.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion. I move to approve the multi-district agreement between Lone Rock, Warren, Carlton, Hamilton, Corvallis, Darby, and Victor.
Thank you, Fran.
I'll say.
Second from Dan. Are there questions from the board for the superintendent about this agreement? Comments from the board? Questions or comments from the public? So we're doing a primary and a secondary. Are we doing one for the elementary, one for the high school?
We are not. They're just between the districts.
They're just general. Okay, all right. With that being said, is there no comments? Question? All those in favor of approving the multi-district agreements with the aforementioned schools here in Ravalli County, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 2 items left on our agenda tonight, and policy, I think it's 1120, requires that every school board in the state of Montana reorganize on an annual basis to elect a chair and a vice chair, and then appoint a clerk in the process. And so at this time, the floor is open for nominations for the chair for the 25-26 school board. Toby?
I'd like to nominate Ben Meyer for chair for the 25-26 school board year.
Thank you. I do accept that nomination. There further nominations? Oh, yes. Is there a second?
It doesn't actually require a second.
Doesn't require a second. Are there further nominations?
I thought we had to vote
So,
on a
yeah,
nomination before, any other nominations could be made.
We should vote.
Right. We have to get every nomination out there so people know who they're working with. So, and then we vote. That's correct. So,
We've never done that in the past. We've had a nomination, we've voted on it, and then we've moved forward.
I think that's true.
We use Robert Rules of Order here, and that's what that would require, is to get all the nominations out under Robert Rules of Order. So in the past, I believe we have not done it, but Robert Rules of Order does require that, and so, I think we should stick with the rules of order. We should be using them.
I will say that MTSBA says Robert's Rules of Order are just a guideline list. They're not necessarily hard and fast, but
all right, with no further nominations, then nominations are closed. And we will elect. So, unless there is objection to acclamation, we take a vote. All those in favor, I would do another year in the chair position. Who said aye?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries 6-2. The floor is open for the nomination of the vice chair.
I nominate Stephanie Esch for vice chair.
That's second.
Been moved and seconded, and we don't need a second. Stephanie, do you accept? Right? And further nominations, I guess, for the vice chair. So, all those in favor of electing Stephanie for the position of vice chair of the school board, please say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Right, and at this time, we are required to appoint a clerk.
Can I make a motion?
Yes, please.
I move to appoint Mrs. Christy McLaren as the clerk of the Stevensville School District Board of Trustees.
Second. Been moved and seconded, Stephanie Billy, to appoint Christie as the clerk of the board of trustees. This is different than her business manager role. This is a stated role in law as clerk of the school board. Questions or comments? All those in favor of appointing Christie as clerk for the next year, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And at this time, we have, we'll have a motion to adjourn. So moved. Billy, seconded by Nathan? Yep. All right.
You'll have to sign
All those in
this.
favor of adjourning the meeting, please say aye.
You have to sign it.
All right. Motion carries.
I guess not.
Be something that